Everybody laughs at me yesterday.
We're all fired.
Go.
So, just lost my train of thought. Okay.
We're live now.
So we're live now.
Q1.
So Q1. So obviously it's January. A lot of people have a lot of ideas of what they want to do differently or better or add to their business. A lot of people start out with retail arbitrage and they want to graduate from that and do online arbitrage or wholesale or private label or other methods of sourcing. We're going to be introducing a lot more of that to ACE this year now that we're out of Q4. We like to start everybody with retail and online arbitrage just so you get a sense of the concepts of what we're doing and how we do our business. We still do a ton of retail arbitrage and online arbitrage. I know if you speak to people in the community and the Facebook, they'll scare the crap out of you until you don't do it. We're going to do it until Amazon tells us we can't do it because it's still the most profitable sourcing method that we have. It still allows us to get the most inventory turn about later today when we do budgeting and cash flow. And it's still the best way to do business. That being said, if we didn't have Uncle Jackie and our online arbitrage guys, I probably wouldn't be able to do it myself, and I would do wholesale. And the other things that I do, closeouts and liquidations and private label. Blessed to have a staff, Ike and Marie do the wholesale. Jackie and Shani do the retail arbitrage. Jay and Neil and Katie do the online arbitrage. So we have a good staff of people that have been trained by me and then by Jay and Ike, all the way down to the new people that we have that are doing, various methods of sourcing. Obviously, most of you don't have a staff yet or a full staff. So you have to make sure whatever you're doing is the best use of your time. You're going to hear me say that time and time again. And it's like the example I gave yesterday. You can buy something for $5 and sell it for $15 all day long. And Amazon will take a third, which is $5, and you'll make a third, which is $5. But you have to make sure that you're not leaving more money on the table by going after this opportunity. So you have to always think, how can I do things? If you want to make $300,000 a year in this business, your time is worth $1,000 a day, which means it's worth $100 plus an hour. So you got to make sure you're not doing $10 an hour work. Otherwise, that's all you're going to make is $10 an hour. I don't think anyone's in this business to make $10 an hour. Most of my employees make more than $10 an hour. So, you don't want to do things that are only worth $10 an hour. That being said, so we have retail arbitrage, obviously you're all familiar with. We have online arbitrage, most of you are familiar with. We have wholesale, which we're going to be training you guys a lot more. Like we started yesterday, how to evaluate lists, how to reach out to wholesalers, whether you're part of the retail store or not. If anyone's not part of the retail store and wants to sign up, you could see Melissa or Irene when she gets back after lunch, or any of the other staff members. We have over 100 accounts that we've opened that you can buy through the retail store. My goal is to have a few hundred by the end of the year and just keep adding, in the fashion and footwear and clothing and beauty products and personal care and pet products and whatever other products we want to open wholesale accounts with. The goal is to keep adding to that, and we keep adding staff that's working towards that goal. Obviously, you guys can open your own wholesale accounts. You're going to run into a problem if they want you to have a brick and mortar. And if you're part of the retail store, we can open it on your behalf through the GEMS retail store. So we're getting more into wholesale with the clients. We're getting more into the wholesale ourselves. We're getting more into private label. We have a lady coming tomorrow who's been making products for Fendi and Macy's and a lot of big box retailers for I think 30 years. We did a webinar with her. She's coming here from Connecticut tomorrow. We have a few clients that are already working with her and developing products overseas. Anything from socks and shoes to clothing to pocketbooks to belts to cell phone accessories. Whatever you can dream of, she can probably source for you overseas. She's great at design. She's great at quality control. She's great at dealing with the factories in China. So we're not big fans of you guys going on Alibaba and trying to do private label by yourselves. You're probably going to end up losing tens of thousands of dollars. I can give you a list from here till next week of people that I know that have done that. So we don't recommend that. We'd rather do it in a more strategic, logical way. And we're going to bring a lot of private label opportunities to the group, and also white label, which is, you know, stuff that's already being made by a manufacturer, and they can just make it for you with your own name and your own brand. So that, you know, the quality control and the research and the design and the everything else that goes into manufacturing is already done for you. And then we'll teach you how to get it ranked on Amazon and how to get sales velocity going on Amazon, how to do sponsored ads on Amazon. You may want to do Facebook ads for your Amazon private label products. There's a lot of things that are going on now with private label that we'll be able to help you with. If anybody is considering buying any other courses that are out there, I don't want to discourage you from doing that, but let me just say that every course that's out there, we're either going to buy ourselves or we're going to, you know, it's going to be gifted to us because of the relationships that we have. And we're going to take those courses ourselves, and we're going to learn anything that we don't already know. We're going to learn ourselves and share it with you guys, obviously with the permission of the course developers. So like Andy Slamon's private label course, or the wholesale formula, or any of the other courses that are out there. You know, we know pretty much everything that they know. We may not be sharing it with you guys. We may not have shared it with you guys in the past, but we're going to do a better job of sharing it with you in the future. The purpose of this place, other than, you know, having 50 people here this month, was to create a video studio, and to have, we bought professional 4K cameras and lights and recording equipment and audio equipment, and we're going to set this up, this room and the other room, full-fledged recording studios. We're going to leave everything set up. And then Jay and Ike and Daniel and myself and whoever else is going to be making content is going to come here. So it's outside of our office, away from all the distractions, and just make content all day, you know, as frequently as we can. We're going to have, we just implemented a new back end of the website where it has a plugin called Sensei, which is a learning management system. So it'll be more along the lines of an online course. It'll be in sequential order. It'll be in, you know, an order that makes sense, so you could jump around and start wherever you want to start. You don't have to start at the beginning if you're already past that stage. And it's going to be more efficient. So we have all the information. We're just doing a better job of getting organized and communicating better. I'm very self-aware that those are our limitations, but we have Delane here. She worked for Tony Robbins for many years, and she's helping us do things, you know, on a much larger scale when it comes to online marketing and online courses and delivering the content and the video and the organization and the structure. So that's been a tremendous asset. Daniel is new. He's been selling on Amazon for a while now. He had a closeout company. So he's very knowledgeable. Ike, you guys know, is like a software savant. He actually didn't know Excel when he started, and now he's like amazing. Jay is Jay. Jay's awesome. He works with a lot of our clients, and I'm always available. And Melissa is being groomed to do some coaching. She's a Harvard professor, is that right? She got accepted to Harvard, but she came to work for Ace instead. She loves chocolate, if anyone wants to her chocolate. Diana's new, and Irene is at the dentist. So, and she's probably reapplying her makeup. Michael Kluger's here. He's a client now. He used to work for Ace, and he became a paying client because he saw the value. Anyone else here that wasn't here yesterday besides Delane and Michael? No, I think we're good. Oh, we waited for you.
Sorry.
That's right. We stole your table, too.
Actually, we need you to move your car.
Stop it, no.
We really do. She thinks you broke.
No.
No, that's all right.
Daniel,
That's right. So we're going to focus on wholesale. We're going to focus on private label. We're going to focus on Amazon International. We did a webinar with Amazon on November 7th about Amazon International. They actually did not allow us to record it, the audio, or if it did record, they zapped it. So we'll try to do another one in the future for those of you that didn't make it. We're getting more and more of a sense that it used to be that you really didn't want to focus on Amazon International unless you were doing, a couple of $100,000 a month on Amazon.com because of the logistical challenges and the shipping overseas and all the other issues that come with selling internationally. Most Amazon sellers didn't focus on international until they were at a certain level on .com. We're getting more and more of a sense that Amazon UK and Italy and France are growing at a much more rapid pace, and there's a lot less competition over there. So we're going to try to help you guys, for those that want to sell internationally. We have Amazon, on our team, and we have a lot of partnerships that we've been making with different companies that can help you get the VAT done and all the other things that have to go into it done. I did also at some point today want to introduce Randy Reynolds and Bob Steele. They're two clients of ours, and they also have their own sourcing lists. Randy is one of the founders of The List. It's called The List IO feed. For lack of a better title, The List. No, it's $200 a month. The List. It's $200 a month. We pay for it. How much?
It's $220, but there's like a discount now for
if you prepay for a certain amount of time or something. All right, so we pay. I know we pay like $200 a month. He's got 100 spots. 95 of them are booked, so he's got 5 spots open for anyone that wants. Basically, what they do is the guys themselves. So it's Randy, Chris Bond, not Chris.
Randy.
I suck at this. Curtis Batdorf.
Curtis.
Okay.
David Hawkins.
Hawkins is brilliant, by the way.
Andy now.
And the Simons? Okay, cool. So those 4 guys run the list, and they put out how many deals?
We say that it's going to be 50 a week. It's usually closer to 65.
Okay, and the big distinction on Randy's list is that these guys do the sourcing themselves. It's not done by people in the Philippines. So they vet the deals, they check the deals, they're good deals. We buy the deals. They buy the deals. It tends not to get saturated like some of the other less expensive lists out there, so it definitely pays for itself. He's got 5 spots open. And Bob, I know I didn't prepare you for this, but what do you guys do with your list?
We have VAs in the Philippines. We have daily VA
Right.
groups. We have a TJ Maxx group. One of the things we're starting to do a lot more of is tactical arbitrage custom scripts. That's
Okay.
something that I've personally done. And
Okay.
I have 200 sites in my account. So it's
200 sites
200 added sites on top of it.
that are not in Tactical Arbitrage's list that you can source from because you built scripts.
Yep.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So we've got a whole catalog of those, and we're doing the buy requests.
That's awesome. And I know your lists are good, even though they're sourced from people in the Philippines, because
Yeah,
you
we
got
actually
like,
have a U.S.
he's got like 7 million VAs.
Yeah, we get about 1,000 fines a week.
1,000 a week. And what does it cost?
The VA groups are $100 a month. It's,
Okay.
12 to 15 items daily, plus we have added Amazon flips that Sky does for us.
Okay. And I just want to say with regards to the list, some people are opposed to lists. We're not. It's not probably not your first sourcing method that you want to do, but if you have more money than time, it's a great way to have incremental business. Also, these guys do a great job of teaching you what they're finding and how they're finding it and what they, explaining why it's a good deal. So even if you're only in it for a few months, you'll learn so much. You'll be able to, you'll be able to learn how to do it yourself, and you'll be able to find these deals 6 months or a year down the road without the list, or you can stay on the list like we do. And we have someone that buys from these lists all day, obviously with our own parameters. But we have one guy who sits in office like a robot all day. He doesn't talk. He buys from his list. He buys from his. Oh, he's the best employee I have. He doesn't talk.
Seriously. I would clone this guy.
And he literally is like a machine. I see how much he buys. He buys more than Jackie. Now, granted, he has a list, but or he has 10 lists. But he does a good job of sourcing for us, and he's really doesn't make too much, so that's always good. And no, it's a nice way for us to add incremental business to what our traditional sourcing methods. So you have spots open, Bob? I know I didn't. Okay. All right, so if anyone wants to talk to Randy or Bob, I'm not trying to sell their services. I'm just telling you it's a big part of our business model. So online arbitrage is typically more scalable than retail arbitrage, just because you don't have to get in your car and deal with 0-degree weather or 100-degree weather. You can do it from your pajamas, from your couch. That being said, so we have Q1 is really the topic of this. Does anyone have any specific questions with regards to how to prepare for 2017?
This is a roundtable, Sam. We have entire
Oh, good.
stuff planned to talk about for
No.
Q1 before we get into
I didn't know
Q&A.
that was the format.
Or at least I have stuff planned to talk about before we get into Q&A.
Great Oz has spoken.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. No, so okay, Q1, we do have a good handful of things that I wanted to talk about. First and foremost, the biggest mistake that I see people make and a lot of clients make when I'm talking to them is we all shifted our business model for Q4 to do more business, and hopefully that worked out well, and we did a ton of business in Q4, and now we have a ton of extra capital. The first thing you want to do is remember to shift back to where you were in October. We should be coming out of this, and what we were doing in Q1, 2, and 3 that got us to Q4, we don't want to stop doing that and start a whole new business this year. We want to pick back up where we were in October and then take the extra capital that we generated in Q4, and that's where we're going to either, if there's still a lot of room to grow in what you were doing, put it into what you were doing. If not, this is obviously the time when we do talk about moving our business in new directions, but we want to add without subtracting. That's something that we did in our own business that we talk about all the time. Sam started in DVDs and wholesale DVDs, and that's a declining market. I mean, a lot of people have gone out of business selling DVDs. A lot of people who were DVD sellers have gotten out of Amazon. We still sell a tremendous number of DVDs. If you look at our numbers, they're still our probably highest units, or close to. Shoes might have eclipsed it in units also. Yeah. So it's our second highest number of units. It's nowhere near shoes or clothing on the dollars because it's a lower average sale price. But the point is, we didn't stop selling DVDs just because we started to do retail arbitrage and online arbitrage and shoes and clothing and all these other things that we do. We automated it. We refined it down to an exact science. We automated it. It doesn't take Sam's time anymore. It doesn't take my time anymore. It takes a little bit of Ike's time now each month, and a little bit of the warehouse's time. But if we took that part of our business away, we'd lose 25% of our business as opposed to continuing to grow. So you want to make sure that you're reestablishing what you were doing at the end of Q3, moving into, what the next thing is for your business. So what should be the next thing for your business? My general recommendation is to take what you were doing in Q3 and find the type of arbitrage or the type of sourcing method that's going to be a good balance to it. So if you were doing wholesale, it might be time to add in some online arbitrage just because you're going to get a little more money turns, or it might be time to add in private label just because you're going to get, the good counterbalance. The problem with wholesale being it's got the longest lead time of sourcing and probably the lowest margins. So online arbitrage counterbalances that because you have significantly shorter lead time. You should be able to get the products in 3 to 5 days and get them in Amazon and get additional money turns. Private label counterbalances that because you should be able to get the highest margins with your private label. So you want to find the thing that's going to balance against what you're already doing so that you'll have a balanced and diversified inventory. Like you add.
Yeah, just to jump off that also, just keep in mind that since it's going to be a little bit slower going forward because we just came out of Q4, you also want to reassess if you're at least selling for more than just Q4, what worked well in the time beforehand so you can continue to do that. So if you notice something didn't work out well, obviously it's implied, and you should know this already, but don't invest your money into stuff that you're losing money on or not profiting on just because it's a supplier or something you can source from. You want to actually look at the numbers and look at the reports and see which items actually were profitable. And going back, like for instance, what we do with our wholesale DVDs, I'll usually check to see which ones have sold, which specific titles, which brands, which distributors to purchase from, to see which ones are actually still somewhat profitable. And when we get these new lists from them, I will look at our previous sales to see if they're still profitable. Because a lot of times I'll look at a list, and I did this yesterday with the Scan Power. We saw a DVD list where we saw a few things that were profitable and a lot of things that were not profitable. But let's say we have the opposite. We have a lot of things on the list that are very profitable right now. But it could very well be that, well, right now they're profitable because everyone else didn't have them in stock, and now they are in stock again. So when I check the sales history and see if we purchased these items in the past, and I see, oh, well, we sold 70 of these in the past 6 months, but it was an ROI of maybe 5%, and I see now that it's saying that, oh, if I purchase these, it'll be an ROI of 60%. I don't necessarily trust that, because I assume that other suppliers who are open with these other Amazon sellers that are open with the suppliers also are getting these deals as well and are also purchasing these. So if you see a deal that's immediately like enticing, that seems great, and you know you've purchased in the past, make sure that you actually did make money on that in the past, because you can kind of see the trend that it's likely that the price will drop again because other people are looking for the same deals. Now, the opposite, it will be if it's a closeout or liquidation, which is a separate kind of business model to look for. Because if you know for a fact these are the last remaining pieces, and you have this kind of data that tells you that these are going to be profitable, then that's a good opportunity. But you want to make sure that the supplier is reliable. I know Sam mentioned this yesterday. Sometimes these people at like ASD, they'll say, oh, you have 1,000 left in stock, but really they have 6,000. They tell it to each of their clients, and then they purchase that, they redistribute them, then everyone has it and kills the price. So it's a little bit of research to be done, but make sure that you're seeing what did work and then putting your money back into the products that did work well for you if you can purchase those items again.
Yeah, and I think he's touching on something really important here that we don't talk about enough, which is profitability. I think we get caught up very much in this business in our sales and forget about our profits. We had a client last year who was doing Nike retail arbitrage, and he would go on these long sourcing trips. He was in the Midwest. He would go to 4 other states besides his own to source Nike, and spent days on the road sourcing them. And when we actually broke down the numbers with him, after paying tax in 4 different states and the amount of time and whatnot he put into the sourcing, he was absolutely not making money. And when we were trying to shift him to a different business model, he couldn't break out of this mindset of, no, I need to keep my sales at this number, so I have to continue to do what I'm doing with Nike. And I mean, at that point, he was just working for Amazon and didn't realize it, because the only person making money on his Nike sales was Amazon. So be sure when we talk about doing what's working, it's not just, oh, I'm getting a ton of sales, but make sure that you're getting a profit, and that profit justifies the time that it takes to do it, both sourcing it, and if you're prepping and packing it, or if you have someone prepping and packing it, that is included in your profitability. That's something that can be very hard to do with the lower average sale price items. You see, if you look at the things we buy and the things we sell, the things that we buy that are lower average sale price, DVDs, so easy to prep. I mean, yeah, we have to label every one, but we have people in our warehouse. We have a person in our warehouse now, who do the 5 fingers. She can literally label 1,000 DVDs in an hour. Sam's wife could also label 1,000 DVDs in an hour when she was there.
That was the singing.
That too. Bunch of reasons.
Right. It's never just one. But that's the type of thing. Because we can prep so many in such a short amount of time, yeah, that's absolutely worth paying a $10 an hour worker to do when you balance out that money. Conversely, if you have a bundle that you're now spending 5 minutes putting together, and you're going to make, a couple of dollars on it at the end once all the profit is in, and I'm talking about your overhead, I'm talking about your gas if you have to retail arbitrage source these products, I'm talking about the time spent sourcing these products. If you're doing wholesale, I might be talking about the shipping. I mean, when you include everything in it, what are you going to end up making at the end? You have to be sure that you know that number and that number is worth it. Or again, I mean, you're no longer owning your own business. Now you're in a job and you're working for somebody else, and generally it's going to be who you're buying from and where you're selling on that are going to make more money than you if you get caught up in that.
I just want to add two things to what they're saying. One is, Jay said something very interesting before, is that we started doing wholesale DVDs, and we actually morphed into doing also retail arbitrage and also online arbitrage. That's not how we started, but we saw how quickly the inventory can turn and how profitable it can be. It's actually, the margins are much better than a wholesale. Granted, it's harder to scale it with the amount of units you can buy via retail arbitrage, but if you can manage people and you can manage processes, I know David was doing wholesale and now he's doing a lot of retail arbitrage. He's never done it before. So it's very, a lot of it comes down to, can you manage the people? Can you manage the processes? Can you manage the gift cards? I know Bob's doing a lot of retail arbitrage. And that's a lot of what it has to do with, is being able to manage all these things. So you're not necessarily managing the products, you're managing the people and the processes. So we actually went from wholesale, obviously we're still doing wholesale, but we're doing retail art, we're doing online art, we're doing private label, and we're doing closeouts and liquidations. The other thing I wanted to say, which Jay mentioned, at the end of the day, it's nice to say you're doing $20 million or $100 million on Amazon, but if you're not making profit, it really doesn't matter. I mean, I speak to guys that are doing $100 million on Amazon, and they're probably not making as much as we are doing $20 million. And we could do $100 million tomorrow if we didn't care about profits. But at the end of the day, it's what you keep, not what you sell, and it's what you keep at the end of the day after you pay the tax man and the payroll and all the other things. So just keep that as your primary focus, not your sales numbers, but what you take home after everything. And I think if you do that, you'll have a much healthier business model than if you just try to chase,
And
magical numbers.
And Q1 is the time to get those systems in place, to get the software in place to know those things. I guarantee almost everyone in this room, if not every single one of you in this room, at some point had a thought or a conversation in Q4 about something you wanted to implement, but you were going to wait till January. It's January. I hope you didn't forget what it was. I hope you wrote it down somewhere. Now is the time to implement that stuff. Learn a new software, take demos, implement new systems to save your receipts, to do every aspect of this business. This is a business. I know a lot of us, or sometimes all of us, but many of us started in this almost as a hobby. We came at this selling things out of our house, or somebody told us about this and we were going around to thrift stores and garage sales, or maybe you started in TJ Maxx and Marshalls, but this was something you did out of your bedroom or out of your living room. And it's hard to think of this as a big business, but this is a big business. You are a retail store that operates on Amazon instead of operating on a corner. And you have to treat it that way. You have to put the right systems in place. You have to put the right processes in place. Or again, you're going to be bleeding money that you don't even know you're bleeding. And now is the time to do that. Now is the time to take that extra money that you had. And when I say learn, I'm not just talking about learning wholesale if you weren't doing wholesale, or learning private label if you weren't doing private label, or learning online arbitrage. I'm also talking about learning account management. I'm talking about learning where is Amazon losing your product? Where are you not doing your shipment reconciliations? Where are the different things that you may or may not be doing already, or that you've heard somebody talk about on the Facebook groups, but you didn't have time to look at it? Now is the time to look at it. Had something else I wanted to say, but it escaped me on that rant.
Also, you always want to continue learning. You don't want to ever think you've made it to the top of any business, because, I can sit back and say, okay, I've made it, but I'm doing the opposite. I'm going to Tony Robbins. I'm paying him a fortune. I'm looking into, other people that could teach me, that are better at what they do than I am. And, it's constantly, I didn't know Excel when I started this business. I literally sat with YouTube and watched it till my eyes were bleeding. But it helped me make 7 figures. Ike didn't know Excel. He taught himself Excel. I mean, that may sound trivial, but it changed our whole business and the ability to manage number and data. And that's what we're doing at the end of the day. We're managing big data. We're managing numbers. We're looking for patterns. We're looking for outliers. We're looking for, inefficiencies in the marketplace, to quote Gordon Gekko. That's what we do. We look for inefficiencies in the marketplace and we exploit them for our profits. And there's nothing wrong with that. Amazon does the same thing. Any business in the world does the same thing. If somebody knows how to do graphic designing and they can charge $100 an hour to do graphic designing because you don't know how to do it, you're going to pay them, right? And it's the same thing that we're doing here. We know how to do things that 99% of the world doesn't know how to do, or is too lazy to do, or can't figure out how to do. And that's where we're making our money is by doing these things like the discount gift cards or the lists or the tactical arbitrage scripts or all these other things that we do. That's what allows us to make money. And I think a lot of people have this misconception that what we do is bad or wrong or we shouldn't be doing it because, we're buying Hatchimals and we're selling them for triple the price that we paid for them. There's nothing wrong with that. That's capitalism. That's America. My dad did it with Cabbage Patch Kids. There's nothing wrong with what we do. If we're hustling to stores, somebody told me they went to Walmart and picked up 12 Hatchimals this week.
Where's the rest of the purple ones and stuff?
Who was the one that bought 12 Hatchimals?
Customers, right?
Somebody told me this the other day.
That was anonymous.
Yeah, I see that. Hatchimals are still selling for $175. Adele sent me a couple for my kids. That was very nice. Thank you.
I took one. Thank you, Adele.
Jay took one because my kids got sick of it after the first one hatched. We sold it to Jay. And there's nothing wrong with making a profit. I just want to. I know a lot of people have that thing that maybe what we're doing is not in the best possible spirit of doing business, but there's nothing wrong with making a profit in this country.
It's also an evolution. We are the future of retail. Everything is moving in the direction that we're moving, and that scares the hell out of the brick and mortar stores who are not learning and moving in that direction. The ones who are still trying to do, and the manufacturers who are not learning and moving in that direction and not keeping up with the times because they're slowly dying. When you look at evolution of a species, generally once the new evolution comes, the old species dies out. And that's exactly what is slowly happening. And I've talked about this a little bit with some people. It's actually kind of a fascinating thing in this country when you look at it. 50 years ago, we had mom and pop stores in every town selling everything that people need. And then the big box stores came in and slowly but surely put out of business like 90% of the mom and pop stores. And now we are the mom and pop stores on Amazon. And we're slowly but surely putting the big box stores out of business, which is easy to see as we have, some of the biggest stores in the country closing, most of their locations. And you see Walmart struggling to try to find a foothold in online and buying out every competition they can that's not Amazon.
And it's going to have a domino effect because you just mentioned Sears. Sears is the anchor in many, many shopping malls. So when they go under, the entire mall is going to go under. I actually have family members who own shopping malls. They're very wealthy in real estate. Doesn't help me, but they're concerned. They're actually considering selling all their shopping malls. If you look at the biggest shopping mall owners like Simon or General Growth Properties, they're nervous because if the shopping malls go under, and obviously there's an abundance of retail real estate out there, they're going to have some problems because they're all leveraged and there's nobody to replace these big box retailers. We have a shopping center here on Route 36, about 10 minutes from here, and the last couple of years, Chuck E. Cheese just went out, Sports Authority went out, Barnes & Noble went out, and Petco or
it was Borders.
Staples.
Borders.
No, it was Barnes &
Borders
Noble.
before that.
Don't lie to me. It was Barnes & Noble. I used to live in there.
They just moved to the
On
mall.
Route 36.
Yeah, they moved to the mall.
Yeah, but I'm saying that shopping center is
Yes.
drowning. They
Oh,
put
yeah.
Bye Bye Baby in there, which is not making money.
I'm pretty sure that Daniel Soli is keeping that shopping center afloat for the Taco Bell.
But, the point is, if you want to be in the top 1%, and I know the top 1% gets a bad rap in this country by some people, and I don't mean financially only, but if you want to be successful, you have to be in the top 1% in skills. You have to be in the top 1% in knowledge. You have to be in the top 1% in knowing what's coming, not just what's happened already. You have to anticipate the future, and you have to be able to see things as they're developing and take action before they develop. Like, I'm sitting with Tony Robbins in India, and he's talking about how we've been in a 7-year bull market and that we're about to crash and burn. And, the economy is going to go through another recession pretty soon. I don't know what's going to happen now that Trump's been elected, but
We're going to go through a recession very soon.
Jay is Trump's biggest supporter. But, he's saying, going on a financial trip with him in February to Whistler, British Columbia. He's bringing in 5 billionaire economists to talk about the future of the economy. And, he wants to make sure that his partners are in the right position to take advantage of what's coming and don't get blindsided. And I'm telling you guys the same thing. A lot's going to change in the next 12 to 24 months. And you want to be in a position to take advantage of that. When real estate tanks, you want to be able to buy. When stock markets crash, you want to be able to buy. Warren Buffett says when others are greedy, you should be fearful. When others are fearful, you should be greedy. It's the same thing in this business. There's going to be a lot of opportunity in the next 12 to 24 months, and only the strong and the well-learned and the knowledgeable and the skilled are going to survive. And there's going to be a lot of Amazon sellers that are going to be going out of business. So as many new sellers that are coming in, I'm getting emails now, and I got these last year from a company called Toyberg, which I'm sure most of you have heard of. They do the same thing every year. They overbuy.
Yep.
They buy way too many toys, and they end up selling them at a loss in January. But they have a different game plan. They want to get to that $100 million and get, private equity money or venture capital money, and they're playing a different game. And they're able to borrow money based on their sales numbers, and God knows what they're doing with the money, but they're not making profit. And they're offering to sell me these Minecraft toys that I could buy for $14. And they're selling them on Amazon for $14, which means they're losing $7 for every one they sell. And they have thousands of them. Come to me for $10. And I'm saying, not going to happen. Unless they're $5, they're not going to happen. So, there's a lot of people, with different business models. I just want to make sure that whoever is here with Ace, your business model is to make profit, not just to do sales and not just to post screenshots and whatever else you're going to do with your sales figures.
Also,
borrow money, on the false pretenses.
Also, just to keep in mind, and this is obviously understood by everybody, but not always said, the more profit you have, that's more buying power to reinvest into your company. It's not just necessarily, there's a profit you keep to save. Obviously, I am in the opinion that you should save, a portion of that into savings and then take the other portion of the profit to reinvest. Other people are in the mindset, I know, like Sam, just to reinvest everything. I know everything just to keep getting more inventory, which is also perfectly fine. It's where he got to where he is today. But just have that in the back of your head. If you have higher profitable items, that is more money you can reinvest to purchase more items to add to your value and add to your inventory and add to your business as well. So don't just focus on the sales itself unless you're having more buying power, because otherwise you're just going to be staying where you are and slowly declining because you'll have less buying power as you have more loss.
And a lot of people ask, how much time do I need to devote to this to be successful? How much money do I need to commit to this to be successful? And those are the number one questions I get from newbies, but it also applies to people that have been doing this for years. The more money you invest in this, the more you can reinvest without pulling it out to live off of or to spend elsewhere outside of inventory, the faster you'll grow. The more time you spend learning your craft and honing your craft, the faster you'll grow. The more time you spend, learning tricks of the trade and things that other people are not doing. We make a lot of our money doing what other people either won't do or can't do. So we do a ton of oversized products. A lot of people have oversized restrictions. Most people don't have warehouses. Most people don't know how to make a pallet. I didn't know how to make a pallet 6 years ago. They don't have loading docks. They don't do LTL freight, which is less than truckload. They don't know how to do private label. They don't know how to do tactical arbitrage scripts. There's a million things that you can do that the other 2 million sellers are not doing to differentiate yourself. There's people that, Randy and I were talking this morning, he'll sell something for $200 that costs $100 because most sellers either won't source something that costs $100 or they can't. Either they're scared or they don't have the funds or they don't know how or they're whatever it is. And you have to find these different nuances within the business that you can, Jay and I went to Toys R Us. We found these toys that were like the size of a house. Even the my size Elsas from a couple of years ago from Target, these things were massive. They were 3 or 4 feet tall. You could fit 8 on a pallet inbound to Amazon. So it was $40 to send the inbound pallet to Amazon. So if there's 8 on a pallet, the inbound freight was $5 per unit. But we were buying them for $60 and selling for $160, so we really didn't care. And you know what I'm talking about. We went to Target every morning, and they said it's 1 per customer. So the next day we brought 20 people. I mean, there's things you can do that most people either won't do or can't do that'll differentiate yourself. When we have Nike sale, the last sale, we bought 100 friends and family cards. I think we bought them on eBay or something. Or one of the clients was offering to sell them to other clients, and they limited us. And our Nike turned on us. Some heat from corporate, and as much as they love Uncle Jackie, they turned on us. So they said, okay, you can't use more than 1 friends and family card per day. You can't use the same credit card more than once a day. You can't use gift cards, certain limit. And then they said, so Jackie used to go there and he would make the orders, $750 orders or $1,000 orders. And he would say, send me another 5 people. And we literally sent 35 to 40 people a day. And some of them were friends, and some of them were family, and some of them were employees. It was a friends and family sale. Some of them were employees. And it got to the point where they wouldn't take the credit cards. They wouldn't take the gift cards. I literally went to the bank, took out $5 grand, threw it on the counter. I said, now what? And they took the money and we got to do this. But it just shows you that, you're going to run into obstacles. You're going to run into people who don't like resellers. You're going to run into things. You have to play within the rules, but learn how to beat the system at the same time, if that makes sense. Good.
And look for the opportunity in that.
Right.
If our Nike was doing that, other Nikes were doing that. And how many other sellers could have 35 people go to their Nike to put on 35 orders in a day? Probably not many.
I think the last sale we spent 75 grand at the Nike in like 5 days. And then we had clients in California. Nike was opening 2-3 hours early for them. They were buying 700 pairs a day. What? With no obstacles. They didn't go to California.
We can't tell you where in California. It's a large state.
Yeah.
Somewhere between Los Angeles and San Francisco.
Maybe.
You do that coastal drive?
Somewhere between Mexico and Seattle.
So we're just trying to give you different ways of thinking and different,
Yeah, this is going to be a big time of evaluation for all of you. You're going to be looking at what you did last year and what worked and what didn't work. And you should be looking at that through a lot of different lenses. What suppliers did you do well with? What suppliers did you think you did well with and didn't work? I can tell you every single year when we do these reports at the end of the year and then we have our meetings in January, we have suppliers who we thought we were going to town on. And then we look at our profit and our ROI and we weren't making any money at all. We might have had big sales, but we were making sometimes 5-10% return on investment. And sometimes our net profits on average were, $2 to $3. And so we stopped doing that supplier because that was not worth our time. And then we find other suppliers who we were, doing this really, really well with, and we ramped that up. And one of the biggest changes we made last year was we ramped up our Amazon to Amazon flips, because even though they take a little bit longer to turn, our ROI and our net profit were off the charts, and we could source them more quickly.
I think it was like 170% was the average ROI.
Yeah.
That's just like silly. Also, to add to what Jay was saying, we pretty much don't sell toys anymore outside of Q4 unless they're confirmed and verified that they're discontinued. We found that Amazon very seldomly runs out outside of Q4. There's a lot of guys like Toyberg who dump inventory in Q1. And unless there's a toy that we know is discontinued or very hard to find, we don't sell toys anymore outside of Q4. It's just a recipe for disaster. We do find discontinued toys on closeout and liquidation or random rural Walmarts. We had one toy, Mundo, that was discontinued. We were selling them. It was a $5 fake Play-Doh that supposedly doesn't dry out. And we ended up selling them for $70 because we just kept raising the price and raising the price. And, there's a lot of toys that get discontinued and people pay stupid money for it. If you have kids, you know what I'm talking about.
We will also do some exclusives. They're
Right.
exclusive toys that you can only get from one place for a limited time. Those will generally do well. But that's actually a great lead into what we talk about when we talk about, learning from what the changes that are happening and trying to prospect where things are headed. This was a very different Q4 from any other Q4. If any of you guys are brand new, they shut down FBA for anybody who didn't send in a shipment by like October 12th. And those people weren't allowed to send in anything FBA till December 19th. And they've been shutting down toys for Q4 for anyone merchant fulfilling. That means that giant influx of new sellers that we see every year who come in October and November and only do toys, and that's how they launch their Amazon business, didn't happen this year. I don't know what the long-term repercussions of that might be on Amazon. Toys might be viable again in a year or two because we're not going to get those influx of new sellers who launch their businesses in Q4 and then never understand how the fees work or how sales work because they think Q1, 2, and 3 are going to be the same as Q4.
And I think a big part of ACE, which a lot of people either miss or don't get, is, we have our pulse on the marketplace. We have two very large Amazon accounts. We have 200 clients. We know what's going on. We hear things before they happen. And because of that, and because it's an ever-changing marketplace, we're able to do things before most people see it coming. So obviously there's, a lot of restrictions now on clothing and shoes. I would encourage everybody, if you're going to sell clothing and shoes and you're not doing it on a large scale yet, do it now because the restrictions may get tighter, they may get looser, we don't know yet. But if you've sold a brand, you're much more likely to get grandfathered into that brand than if you've never sold it before. So we have people that started literally a week ago and they're restricted on pretty much every brand. We have people that started 3 months ago and they're not restricted on a lot of brands. So we believe what we're hearing from Amazon is that they were trying to ward off counterfeiters. And we said yesterday, it's gotten into textbooks, it's gotten into every category. There's people suing Amazon now for allowing counterfeiters, and it's really getting ugly. We hope it doesn't turn into the way eBay went, where you didn't know what was real and what wasn't. I think selling the wide variety of products and making sure your metrics are perfect and making sure you're doing FBA will serve you well into the future as they look to not disallow newer sellers, but kind of make sure that they're up to code, so to speak. The newer sellers, they don't want to just allow millions of people to sell on Amazon and lose all quality control. So I think they're going to be much more careful with newer sellers. And we've given them suggestions on how to make sure newer sellers do what they're supposed to do, holding money in escrow, limiting sales velocity, making sure, it's FBA and not merchant fulfilled. And then obviously a lot of these things, go a long way.
We also talk a lot about keeping a positive mindset because that's probably the only way to keep your sanity in this business. And if you look at those brand restrictions as the opportunity that they are, again, that's going to mean it's a lot harder for newer sellers to come in. That may suck if you are a newer seller, but if you can brave those waters, you're going to have a much more successful business and you're going to see much less saturation. The 2 million third party are not going to grow to 4 million as quickly as they would have if those restrictions weren't in place. You're not going to see the same people selling the same brands. You're not going to, if you're selling some of those brands, or if you're currently restricted but then get unrestricted to sell those brands, you're going to see a lot less of the types of sellers who come in and tank prices because they get scared if things don't sell quickly enough, or because they don't understand the fees or different things like that.
The first few months in this business are the hardest because there's so much uncertainty and self-doubt and, you know, what if this happens, what if that happens? And there's so many people that I speak to on a daily basis that they're so afraid to fail that they give themselves no chance to succeed. So just, if you're following Amazon's rules, you're not, hopefully you won't get suspended, but there's nothing that you're gonna buy that's gonna be such a mistake that it's gonna put you out of business. So you're better off buying it. Even if you lose $5 on the item, you got a valuable lesson, and you're that much wiser the next time you go sourcing or the next time you go buying. So just, you know, keep feeding the beast, keep moving forward, keep buying, keep selling, keep learning, and that's how you grow in this business. You know, you really can't have analysis paralysis. You know, we have clients that come into this business and they're like, oh, I have $500,000 to source. And I'm like, that's awesome. If I could have started with that, I'd be done by now. But they're so afraid to buy that they have analysis paralysis that they can't even spend the money even though they have it, and that hurts them more than making the wrong decision. So I just want to put that in your heads that, you know, making a mistake is not the worst decision. Not doing anything is the worst decision.
Yeah, your money sitting will hurt you significantly more than the even if you're bad at buying, the 20 or 30% of bad buys that you would make, because the 70% of good buys are going to well outweigh them.
Good night. Yeah.
Yes.
About something that came up earlier.
Yep.
Profitability versus putting it back into the business. At what point do you determine, okay, this is going to be my profit and this is going to go back into the business?
You want to reinvest as long as possible because it'll have that snowball effect. It's like compound interest or compound returns. The longer you can keep it in, I didn't take money out of this business for the first 2 years. Literally 2 years. I reinvested every penny, and my wife's like, hey, let's save some money for a rainy day. And I'm like, are you kidding me? We're buying stuff for $2 and selling for $10 or $20. You know, I told her I'll sell a kidney if I need more money for everything. It's just that. Give me every penny you have and put it in, and just keep reinvesting. Obviously, at some point, you need money to live off of, but the longer you can keep the money in, the more it'll compound, and then you'll have a bigger money to draw from. So the longer, as long as you could do it without, screwing up your family,
I would say
that would be my answer.
I would say you want to be able to reinvest at least 70 to 80% to continue a healthy growth. If you're reinvesting less than that, you're going to become, especially depending on how well you're buying and what your criteria are, you're going to become dangerously close to being stagnant and not growing. So that, if you're looking for the number of, when can I take money out, figure out what you absolutely need. And then when that is 20% of your profit, that's about the time to start having that conversation. But again, if you can wait 6 more months, another year, whatever you could wait, I promise you that makes such a significant difference, because that 20% becomes 40% the next month, and then 80%. And then, we talk about sometimes with little software, I've talked about it with a handful of people, the software, paying to ask for feedback. We don't really agree with paying the companies that ask for more feedback. One, I think it invites negative feedback back, but much more than that, that $5, $10, $20 that you put in this month, in 6 months would have been $50, $100, and you'll get the feedback just from the organic sales anyway. You have to understand in this business, and this is why, Sam's mentality was what it was and why our mentality is what it is. Once you know what you can do with that money, there's no loan I think that we've ever turned down with that money. You know what I mean? You have to know that with that also when you're looking at whether to reinvest or when it's time to start pulling out. Obviously, it's a personal decision because it's your life and your business.
So you're saying we should use things like feedback pages?
That's a whole other conversation we can have. It's up to you. That's always a business decision. We don't use it. We used it briefly. We definitely saw more negative feedback than positive feedback. Maybe that's just, maybe that's just our experience with it, but again, that money long term that you're investing in Feedback Genius could be invested in inventory and make you a profit and grow your sales, which is organically going to lead to more feedback.
And what about that liquidation yesterday? Do you recommend it or not recommend it? For example, like 888 lots?
No, no.
Never?
But you're gonna have too many problems with inauthentic claims, and you're gonna have
Private label items.
private label items,
It's very
cease and
messy.
desist, and it's a nightmare. We did it for a while, and it's not the best use of your time or your money or
Yeah. Plus, it's
your brain power.
probably the slowest return, and even slower than private label, because you have to vet multiple liquidators to find one that's not full of shit. I don't know a better way to say that. I'm sorry, but no, that's the case. They will tell you there's 5,000, but they also told 20 other people there's 5,000, and guess what? There was 100,000. And when those 100,000 hit the market, that price is going to tank because there's a gigantic influx in supply and no change in demand. So
There's so much prep to be done on the 888 lots as well. Like when our experience, when we've done them for a little bit, we purchased a few different lots, and they came in and they gave us a sort of a manifest of what was on there, and it was by ASIN and title and cost price and sell price. But the ASINs were wrong, the prices were off, the quantity they said was there wasn't right. There were items that we got, many items we got that were not on the list, and items on the list we didn't get at all. So what we were doing is we were basically saying, okay, this is the list, and what I did is I evaluated the list as a whole, what they said the lot was, and if the whole list overall was profitable, we purchased that lot, and what comes in is not the same items. That makes the whole deal completely different now. And now we have items that we have overstock of, items that aren't listed on Amazon, items that have other sellers' labels on them. You have to either scratch off or relabel items that don't have UPCs. And it just was very messy and too much time to work on for not that much profit overall, because you're not putting every single piece of inventory back to Amazon. It's only a small portion. So if that smaller portion that should have been profitable is now no longer accurate or even eligible to be listed or under the wrong ASIN or is hazmat or is returned or damaged, there's nothing you can do about it. So it's not really worth your time to invest in that with so many unknowns, especially if you know that it's not going to be authentic, or you know there's going to be private label items, or you know there's going to be stuff that has been verified by other sellers that say, oh, don't trust this because of all these bad things. It's not just doubt that you're, like what Sam was saying before, because you know there's unknown, you don't want to jump into this business. At least you know with these kind of liquidation lots specifically, and I don't want to bash 888 lots, but this is our experience with 888 lots. We've had just more negative results from them than positive. Not to say there aren't good ones out there. Like we had one lot that actually did really well because one item, they said we had like 5 of them. We ended up having 70 of them, and it was a ridiculous rent.
USB.
Yep, a Dr. Who like multi-USB hub that we ended up paying, I guess, average cost for that lot was like $2 or $3 or something, and it was selling for like 22, 25, yeah. At a certain point, 28, and it was like 1,000 in electronics, and it sold like that next month, all those pieces. So that itself paid for the whole lot, but everything else in there, had we not had that deal, it might not have been worth it. So you'll have some luck with it, but overall, I think it's too risky.
a lot more risk for a lot less reward,
Yeah.
in our experience.
I mean, definitely the amount of time that it does take to break down those lots and see what's in there and see, if it's damaged or not. It's an incredible amount of time that could be used to source much better products that you're going to make your profit on.
And you have to be
No, you
geared
can't.
towards that, right? You have to have like a sorting warehouse, and you have to be.
And-
That's how I have
and
my
even if
warehouse.
you are-
Yeah.
Even if we had a client last year who was geared towards that. That was his starting business model, was buying from 888 lots, and he developed a spreadsheet to evaluate the profitability of a lot, and he had it down to a science. And about a month into him starting with us and starting to do different things, he stopped doing 888 lots because the profitability just wasn't there. Once you factor in all of the work involved and 888 lots, even though it comes from Amazon, it's still liquidation. You still have a certain amount of garbage inventory or trash inventory that you're not going to be able to sell. And when you take that 10% or 20% out, you factor in, even if you negotiate it down to a good price, it's not going to be as profitable as if you just took that same amount of time and sourced in a store, on a website, with a wholesaler, almost any other way.
Thanks.
Yes, Michael.
I'm not sure how many of you guys are new sellers, but for me as a new seller this past Q4, I was restricted on a lot of toys. So would you say Q1 is the time to invest in the toys in order to get unrestricted for Q4? Or it's just kind of?
I would rather have you wait till Q2 or Q3, just because in Q1 you're going to have a lot of people liquidating what didn't work in Q4. So the prices are going to be particularly hard. A lot of those restrictions in toys are not going to be there for you next year because you will no longer be a new seller, though. So you'll have the FBA experience and be able to send in FBA. You won't have to worry about the merchant fulfilling. Certain brands are going to be restricted, and if we can get you selling them during the year, all the better. Even if it's something you're not necessarily going to make a profit on, just to get you grandfathered in. Absolutely. And like you said, Star Wars, Hasbro, things like that are going to be a lot easier to do in Q1, 2, or 3. But again, I would say to wait till Q2 probably.
Was it brand specific or ASIN
It
specific?
is like a lot of Disney toys or Mattel, Hasbro games, just.
Well, a lot
I
lately.
was restricted on a lot of it, so I just stayed away totally and kind of just didn't even put in the time to look sourcing for a couple toys here, a couple toys there. I just kind of stuck, and I didn't see the margins were worth it anyway, even though items were turning so quickly.
Right.
I just kind of stuck with shoes and clothing.
Lately, Amazon's been restricting licenses with movies within the brand. So not all Disney would have been restricted, but for instance, Moana was restricted because that was the new movie that came out from Disney. And like we experienced with Star Wars last year, with Star Wars 7 was restricted. So we can assume this coming year, Star Wars 8 is going to be restricted. Or like 2 years ago with Frozen, things like that will become restricted for newer, hotter brands of specific licenses that exist under the blanket company. So it's tough to look out for that way. You can source other products, but like you were saying, it's hard to find profitability there because toys overall, because there was it wasn't gated for the longest time, and only now certain things are becoming gated. There's no barrier for entry. The market gets so saturated very quickly, and everyone just sees toys on Amazon. They sell fast. They sell there it is, but there's no profit there. And what we experienced firsthand was about 2 years ago. We were direct with a lot of toy companies that we opened with, and we were wholesale with them. So we'd get these lists, we'd run the list, and we purchased from them for the long term. And for a while, it was really profitable. And then after a certain point, more people got wind of it, and then more people were on the listings. We get the next list from the supplier, and then nothing's profitable. There's more people selling them, and it just became there was nothing to look for except for the exclusives or the discontinued items. So unfortunately, you can't really find that when doing RA or OA as much because you don't have that much products in front of you at a time. Whereas you have a supplier, you get that list in front of you, but the result's the same thing. You're still doing the research and finding there's nothing to purchase unless they're discontinued or exclusive or it's gated.
I would do LA and find a couple toys on ToysRUs.com, and I wonder how many, and see that the next 2 sellers have literally hundreds of units. And I'm saying, okay, here are my 3 units that Toys R Us is only allowing me to buy at a time. I just thought that it wasn't worth my time to source and look. But you say Q1, well now.
I mean, if you're not restricted, I would say don't talk yourself out of something so quickly. You already spent the time sourcing it.
Right.
There's no reason not to buy those 3 units, especially if you're sending it to a prep center to prep, pack, and ship. Like, it will literally take no more of your time to add them to the cart. And you know from working with us, and I think all of you know now from seeing what we buy, that we have grown to a very large point staying very wide, and there are big benefits to staying wide. If Toys R Us is going to force you to stay wide by only letting you buy 3, that doesn't mean it's not worth it to buy 3. That just means, you have to find more products, but ultimately you'll probably end up getting more money turned by being in more products.
Yeah, and so we'll add to that one more thing. Like, Jackie sends us the buy list every day when he goes sourcing at the end of the store. So there's some buy lists that he has, 70 items on there. Some items that he has 3 items on there. I've seen a buy list multiple times where there's just 1 item he found in the store, and that's all there was because either there just wasn't stuff there or I don't know, whatever happened in the store. But I've seen buy lists with just 1 product, but he has multiple buy lists throughout the day. So it's still worth it to purchase that item. Just because you're not finding other ones doesn't mean you should just discount it completely.
Right.
And there's a question of that.
I just had, so,
Jackie, every store he sends you that buy. If we were adding them all together, it's just overwhelming.
You can put all the stores on one buy list, or you can do a separate buy list by store. I think it's personal preference. We like doing a separate buy list by store. It helps us to keep it categorized for later use if we need to.
We were adding all the stores, it just gets overwhelming.
Right. Occasionally, also, I'll pull up his buy list if we're doing TJ Maxx or Marshalls and I need to find a receipt. I know what day and I know where he bought it, but what he paid versus what's on the receipt might be different. So I can compare his buy list from that day for TJ Maxx to the receipt and see, okay, he got a 20% discount. So this price is really this price, and now I know what to look for. That's a really small benefit. I mean, I think you're fine either way.
When you mean separate buy, like each time you kind of do the shopping, he immediately sends it off.
Yep.
You know,
At the end of
not
every
check out.
store, yeah, he'll send it to us and he'll name it Nike and the date. And then he'll go to the next store and he'll have a cleared buy list, a new buy list, and do TJ Maxx and the date. Melissa would like us to answer Michael Giddy's question.
You know, think about my business growing, and I did it doing shoes like sanity, but I also realized that there's a double-edged sword to that with return. So what category is outside of shoes and clothing? 'Cause I know that, and like that, I'm still married to them. I just want to have a girlfriend on the side.
Every category is profitable. You have to find one that works for you. You have to find one where you're comfortable sourcing the products, where you have, either good stores in your area or you found good websites. We make profit in DVDs where other people are going out of business. We know people who are making a profit in health and personal and beauty where we struggled for a long time. We know people who build entire businesses on grocery, and when we were heavy in grocery, we wanted to murder ourselves because of expiration dates and labels. There's no right answer to that question because there's people making money in automotive, and I couldn't tell you a single thing to sell in automotive. But there are people whose entire business is predicated on automotive. There are people whose entire businesses are predicated on bundles and things like that. So you can there's opportunity in every category on Amazon. Find a niche where you have some knowledge. If you have some prior information or prior knowledge, that's going to be more comfortable to you and help you to be successful there more quickly. Find a niche, find something that balances shoes and clothing. If the shoes and clothing returns are an issue for you, if that's the biggest concern, one, I know we've talked about this before, understand that you build that into your business model. So when you set your minimum ROI and your minimum net profit, it should be built around the fact of understanding that 15 or 20% of whatever you buy is going to get returned, and you're going to have to pay an extra $8 on that 15, 20%. So I needed to be a 70% ROI instead of a 50% to build in that extra $8 for this product. There's a ton of, most other categories have a much lower return rate. In DVDs, we have a 1% to 2% return rate. In other products, when we were heavy in toys, I think it was like 5% to 10% on average. So,
And like you said, you mentioned HBA or that's all, and that you would source RA and OA, or that's wholesale buying, or
yes,
thank you.
all sourcing methods work. We still know people who are doing a ton of grocery in store at places that have unique items, and we know people who have grocery wholesalers in their area and do it all from wholesale lists. There's not one right answer because you can be profitable in this business so many ways. You have to find what works for you.
I just want to add two things. If anyone wants any more information about Disney princesses, Jay is intimately familiar with all of them. You just saw the movie Moana.
I
How
did.
was it?
Oh, it was spectacular. Very,
Do
very
you
good.
think it's something that'll do well with licensing?
Yeah, I do.
Are there characters that?
Well, are they making a second one?
They will absolutely be making.
She's
a second one.
Hawaiian, from what I'm told. What else can you tell us about her?
The Rock is in it, and he is a merchandising god.
He's in it.
Yeah, he's the second main character. He's Maui.
Who knew?
I
The other thing before Adele asks the question
What was he saying?
is we put together a calendar. That's cool. We put together a calendar. You got to get red, yellow, and green.
I'm working on it.
We're already on red. She skipped yellow and green.
She's colorblind. She's colorblind. Yeah. Has to do with the chocolate. No. We put together a calendar which we're going to try to make more professional looking. But for now, it's just the entire year as an FBA seller. Everyone obsesses over Q4. There's actually about 20 Q4s every year if you play your cards right. So obviously, we just had New Year's. There's a lot of barware and party favors and other things that surge. Then there's Super Bowl. Then there's Valentine's Day. Then there's St. Patrick's Day. Then there's Easter, Passover, Mother's Day, Father's Day. Barbecue stuff for the summer,
Graduation,
proms, and graduations, and weddings, and back to school, and Halloween, and there's so many seasons on Amazon that if you try to plan your year better than most FBA sellers do, you'll make a lot more money. So just keep that in mind. If anyone has not gotten the calendar, see Melissa.
And that does not mean to only do that, though. Whenever we talk about doing something, we are talking about adding it to what you're doing. I don't think you'll be any happier if you become one of those sellers that puddle jumps from holiday to holiday and does nothing in between. So if you're building up, one of the big reasons why we like shoes and clothing is because we can build up this consistent shoe inventory that will sell the same in Q1, 2, and 3. It'll get a little boost in Q4, but not the boost from toys. But it's also not going to die down when we get back into Q1. We're not going to stop doing that just because we're also going to send in, stuff for Valentine's Day, or just because we're going to send in stuff for Mother's Day or Father's Day. Also, one last thing, and then we really have to stop talking because we're way over on time, as always. There's a handful of holidays coming up after Valentine's Day where you can send in the same type of items for multiple. Mother's Day, Father's Day, graduation, a lot of them actually have items that can sync up with all of them. Watches do very, very well because they make great Father's Day gifts and graduation gifts. There's different jewelry, things like that. So that's also stuff you would want to, if you haven't already, spend some time looking into learning. We're happy to talk about that with you guys when we have our one-on-one sessions, and we're going to continue to build up our wealth of content on that kind of stuff as well as we revamp the website.
I think we have the app eagle now. Go ahead, Odell.
Quick, 2 questions. DVDs, is it approval, you can have them on the website?
I'm going to start charging you for these questions. No. Yes, we have an email.
Adults paid in full.
Okay. We have an email with the 3 suppliers that Amazon will approve. It's Ingram Entertainment, Waxworks Online, and Baker and Taylor. Melissa can send you the email. You do have to invest a little bit of money to buy things that you won't make money on to get approved, but once you do, you'll be able to do Amazon flips. We'll be able to send you some of our DVD sources, the ones that will allow us to share with you, and you can make a lot of money still on DVDs.
Larry.
Question 2, wait, Dell has a 2-part question. And then she has Jerry asking questions too. She's like kicking him under the table. That's the question.
The Amazon, do you suggest that we put everything into Amazon, but what happens if they shoot us, if they,
So my philosophy has always been, if you're 95% Amazon, you're also doing eBay and Walmart and Jet and whoever else you're going to do, and your Amazon gets shut down, you're screwed anyway. You're not going to possibly run your business with 5% of your sales. But on the flip side, there's a lot of people doing a lot of business on a lot of other marketplaces, whether it be eBay or Walmart or Jet or Shopify. So we're going to be getting into that as an augmentation of Amazon International also. So I'm not saying put all your eggs in one basket, but we have all our eggs in one basket, and we're exploring other options now. We used to be on Newegg and Sears and Rakuten and Walmart and God knows where else, and it wasn't worth our time, and it wasn't worth anything. And we just decided to focus on Amazon and built it up. Larry.
With the toys that you have at Amazon that doesn't sell Q4,
Yes.
do you plan to liquidate that, or you
We-
bring it back in?
Why, do you want to buy them?
$5.
So, yeah, exactly. That's my philosophy. So, Ike and I spoke about this in mid-December, like December 15th. I was telling Miranda this morning. I said, I really don't want to have a lot of toys come January. So we set it to like break even, and a lot of them sold. Probably closer to December 20th, December 25th. And at this point, we'll even lose 10 or 20% just because we don't want to carry it and then we're gonna have long-term storage fees. And that's fine because it's 10% of our inventory, you know, versus we made money on the 90%, kind of like what the retailers do. They'll sell Macy's, they'll sell things full price, and then they'll have a massive sale to get rid of the last 10 or 20%. We do the same thing. You can't hang on, don't get married to your inventory. Don't say, oh, I paid $20, I can't sell it for 25 and get back 18. Don't be that guy. Because that guy will end up selling it for 18 and getting back 10. You know, you don't want to be that guy. It's like playing musical chairs. You don't want to be the last guy standing. Because it usually doesn't end well and you usually end up losing a lot more. Now, if you look at Camel and Keepa and graphs and history and this and that, and you see that the item has the potential to go back up, or it's discontinued or whatever, they have a newer model but it's not as good, then you might make the argument that I could hold on to it hoping for a rebound. But the number one thing in this business is inventory turns. Okay? I've studied mathematics and finance, and Ike will tell you the same thing. If you can sell inventory 26 times a year, let's say you start with $50, you buy a pair of Nikes, they sell for $100. Amazon takes 20, you make 30. You made a 60% ROI on that $50. If you can do that 26 times a year, you're going to be very wealthy in a couple of years. Okay? But if you try to be a hero and you wait and you try to get more money and it doesn't sell as quickly, but you make a little bit more of an ROI, you're not going to have as much money at the end of the year or 2 years or 5 years or 10 years. So inventory turns is huge. I know a lot of people do long-term holds and they buy Legos in January and they're going to sell them for triple maybe in December if there's a perfect storm and everyone runs out and the price goes up and it gets discontinued and I bought a Lego for $100, now it's selling for $300. That's nice, but I'd rather turn that $100 over 26 times a year, you know, or whatever the average turn is on the inventory. Okay, there's no other business in this world where you can turn inventory as quickly as you can on Amazon. So if you get out of that mindset of I have to sell it for a certain price, you know, or I'm holding out for a certain price, just sell it. Just sell it and make money. Sell it and make money. Sell it and make money. That's it.
Final question?
Yeah,
Just two.
building on Adele's question on, you know, if you're 91st.
Are you asking this for Adele?
No.
Passing a note.
Just building on that question.
We love you, Adele.
Building on your question, with Napoli, I'm concerned. I think many people might have it, you know, hey, what happens if I put all my money in, or so much money in Amazon? Other than inauthentic claims, or as long as we're buying stuff from a proper store, doing RA or OE, and we have receipts to back, we're not doing too much of liquidation or anything else. Is there something else that we should be really worried about as far as will I get shut down?
Well,
I think that's something at the back.
So shut down is a dangerous term. You can get suspended even if you do nothing wrong. We've had clients have that happen. We just had one this week. He had an unbelievable December and he woke up January 1st or 2nd and he was suspended due to 3 inauthentic claims. Now we know where he sources. He has his receipts. They were not inauthentic, but he's still suspended right now and they're holding 25 grand and we're going to get him reinstated because we have a 100% success rate with getting people reinstated. That being said, Amazon is using bots and they're suspending people more frequently than they used to, but they're also reinstating people more than they used to. If you got suspended 5 years ago from Amazon, they sent you a letter saying you're banned for life. And then you had to like get a ghost account and use different IPs and different, you know, bank accounts and names and credit cards and this and that. I have a cousin, he does $10 million on Amazon. You know the guy. And he sells accessories, spotting scopes and flashlights on hats. I don't know, all this sports and outdoor stuff. And because he's in that category, a lot of his listings get taken down and taken down and taken down. So he keeps opening more and more accounts. You know the guy. Yeah. He keeps opening more and more accounts, and he keeps calling me, what do I do? What do I do? I say, you need to have a conversation with the head of the category. You're big enough where you can do this in sports and outdoors, and you need to like work together with him and build up your account. And he went the other way. He now has 30-something Amazon accounts,
Run out of
separate computers,
run out of a
separate,
basement.
separate. I know he's got a warehouse, but separate IP addresses. He puts a notebook on the computer so that nobody can log in without the username and password. And it's just different bank accounts, different addresses, different credit cards, different names, different LLCs. I'm like, how do you sleep at night? It doesn't make sense. But he went one way, we went the other way. We wanted a second Amazon account. We asked for permission. We got it in writing. We said, please clarify what you mean. They said you can't sell items in the same category. Sense. What does this category have? There's 50 million items in home and kitchen. So we got them to get it. It took me a month to get it in writing that they don't want to sell in the same ASIN, the exact ASIN in both accounts, because they're worried about price collusion and all these other things. So we said, okay, fine. We got it in writing. This was 4 years ago. And sure enough, like last year, they sent me an email on a Friday night saying, we see you have 2 accounts. Either shut one down or we'll do it for you. I'm like, are you kidding me? And we saved the email in like 50 different places, in Evernote and in the cloud, and I printed it out. And I went there and I emailed it to them, and I said, listen, we have express written permission that we could have 2 accounts as long as we don't have the same ASIN. Like, oh, we'll look into it. We'll get back to you. They got back to me Monday night. So you can imagine what kind of 72 hours I had. And they said, oh, sorry, our bad. We see you have permission. Never mind. I'm like, you guys suck. But I didn't say that, but that's how I felt. So nobody's immune to it. We got a merchant fulfilled order, and I think I canceled it or someone canceled it for like some North Face item. I think it was me. We don't do merchant fulfilled. We have a store on vacation mode since October 2011. And they offered us a loan. And they said, okay, we'll give you the loan, but you have to make your store active. So I made the store active. Sure enough, somebody placed a merchant fulfilled order. We still can't figure out how. Something to do with the data feeds and the uploads. You could probably explain it better than I can. And I canceled the order. All of a sudden, our account health went from good to poor because we canceled that one order. Now, we've sold millions of orders on Amazon the last 6 years. And they downgraded. We got on the phone with them and we gave them hell, for being so stupid. But
We suddenly had a 100% cancellation rate.
yeah, we were 0 for 1, and our percentage batting average was 0. So that being said, anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, there's one. Wait. There's one last question, Ike.
One last question about
Yes.
your burn and turn philosophy.
Not burn and turn, inventory turn.
Inventory turn.
You're a finance guy. You can come explain it to them.
I keep track of certain brands and when they're going to discontinue something, and I've got at least 3 different items where
Yes.
I find out through various ways they're going to discontinue. Let's say, for the sake of this question, a shampoo.
So that's a totally different conversation.
I go
If
buy
something's
shampoo,
discontinued, I keep raising the price till I get price resistance.
Oh, I don't raise. I just go right to 50. But
Yeah. What I'm saying, like, we had that Mundo toy, which was a $5 item. We were selling for $20, $30, $40, $50, $60, till we got to $69, and we didn't get one price complaint, and we were selling for $69.95.
I don't care.
So no, I'm saying just keep raising the price until they stop selling, or until you sell out.
Have some awareness though of how long until it gets discontinued and how long your capital is setting.
Sounds like
Yeah.
We Randy can tell you, David Hawkins, I was with him at a conference. He told me he made $70,000 on a discontinued item. Him and his wife sourced it for a week.
All over the Midwest.
In the Midwest. He lives in Kansas City. He's like a baby face guy, him and his wife. Did they have their kid yet?
Yeah.
Oh, they did. The boy or girl?
Girl.
Nice. They're a great couple. They're from Kansas City. Sweet, quality people. He said he found a discontinued beauty item or personal care
I
item.
don't even tell us either.
We know it was on Amazon.
Every single one of them, and it was like he paid like $20 and he was selling for $130. And he told me he made $70,000 that week on that one item. So,
They're real road trip source.
and all they do is retail arbitrage, and they did a few million last year, 5 million, I think. They did 5 million doing retail arbitrage. And we have a client from Massachusetts, Dan Wentworth. Guy does millions of dollars, strictly retail arbitrage. So if anyone thinks it's beneath them or they shouldn't do it.
Or not scalable.
Or not scalable, which is the consensus, don't believe the hype.
Everything is scalable. You just have to do it right.
Right.
Closing statement. And that's the end of the Q1 talk. All right.
All right.